Hi everyone, this session is going to be a follow-up from the sessions that we did before, the first of which converted a 6.5 repository into one that was compatible with AAM as a cloud service. And the second one then ran that project through AAM's Cloud Manager pipelines to build it in AAM as a cloud service environments. Today we're going to talk about how we can increase the amount of best practices that we follow. So what I have here is the project that was migrated from 6.5 to AAM as a cloud service and was also subsequently built. So it does exist in AAM as a cloud service. It is part of a Git repository over there already. And we're just going to make some changes to see how we can better follow some best practices. So one thing that is turned on by default after that conversion from AAM 6.5 is this skip validation true. Part of the File Vault Maven plugin. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to go back into my terminal and run a Maven clean install, and we're going to see how many issues we come up with. So that is, I'm in the wrong directory. Okay, so let me copy this path and cd into that. And run it again. Okay, so this is going to run. It's going to take a few minutes, and I will come back to the recording when it's. Oh, that was quick. Okay, great. So it's got one violation right away, so we can deal with that. It's going to tell us that a package of type application is not supposed to contain oak index definitions. Okay, so already we're being met with the best practice that we were able to not follow with the previous configuration that we had. So I'm going to go ahead and deal with this. So if we go ahead and look at allow index definitions, so let's see where in our project they exist. So here it is in the parent POM. Is it the parent POM? No, it's in UI.apps.structure. So I'm going to clear this up, and that's what we expect, right? So it's a type, package of type application, so we don't want to have any index definitions. That's not to say that there were index definitions within the package, but with our configurations, we are allowing them, and we should not be doing that. So let me run that build again, and I do expect to take a little bit more time this time, so I will pause the recording and come back when it finishes. Okay, so our build is finished. We still have errors, so in this case they're in the UI.apps module, and there's 8 of them. So let's see what we got. The first one says that package of type application is not supposed to contain OSGI bundles or configurations. The second one is similar, again, with the OSGI bundles or configurations. And then the next 6 have to do with, it says invalid XML found, given root node name CQ template, cannot be resolved. The prefix in the file name must be declared as an XML namespace. So we'll have to configure those XML files that specify the namespace and the properties on the various nodes. So let's deal with the first one. So we're going to go into the UI.apps POM, and if we scroll through here, you can see that we've got an embeds, which does include the core bundle. So we don't need that anymore. The repository structure will take care of it for us. So we can remove that from the UI.apps POM. After that, the second piece was specifically in these component folders. So we can go directly into the CQ template section here under weekend components form sign-in buttons CQ template. So here we go. Source weekend components form sign-in buttons. So the problem is that when there's a folder called CQ template with the underscores like this, what it's really saying is that this is going to be called CQ template, like that with the colon. So the colon is not an allowed character in some cases, so we use underscore to specify that there's a colon there. what that means is that the CQ has to be declared as a namespace within this XML file that specifies the properties of this node. And as you can see, it's not, right? We are declaring the JCR namespace, we're declaring the NT namespace, we're not declaring the CQ one. Okay, so let's see if we can find it somewhere else in our project. So in the search bar here, I'm going to type in XML NSCQ, and here we go. We can pull it from here. So I'm just going to copy this bit here and paste it in here. So that should solve at least one of them. So let's just make sure we're on the right track. Let's run that build one more time. You can see that we don't actually have to run the whole thing again. We can include it with just this command to run just the apps bit for now. Okay, so we are down to 5 violations, which makes sense because we solved the 2 ones that related to the OSGI core bundle and one of the XML namespaces. So we've got a couple more. So we've got the sign in buttons dialog, sign in form template, sign in form dialog, tabs, and accordion. So let's just take those down. We've got in here the dialog one. So I'm just going to paste this. Oop, forgot that I had copied something else. So here, copy the CQ namespace, paste it in here. Let's keep it tidy and keep them together. So that's one. We've got the sign in form, which has its dialog and its template, both with a CQ namespace. And then it was the tabs component, and the accordion. Okay, hopefully that's all of them, and we can run this one more time. Okay, so here we have 1,353 violations. Great. Okay, so let's see if we can tackle these relatively easily. All right, so let's see what some of them say. So missing mandatory property, predecessors missing a node with types, etc., etc. So it seems like we're getting into JCR constraints. So there's probably node types that require certain properties, and vice versa. So usually in this case, when there's that many, it's probably due to a versioning issue. So, oh, sorry about that. Let's go back into our VS Code and see what versions we need to update. So specifically, we have the ones for the HTL Maven plugin. And this one is a little bit outdated. We can pull this one all the way up to 2.0.2. And then also the file vault one, which is also going to specify some restrictions for us. So we can update that to 1.1.6. So hopefully this clears up most of these issues, and we can carry on. So again, I'm gonna run this with just a partial build, starting at UI.content. Okay, so we're down to 12 violations, which is quite a bit better. So whenever you're looking at the latest versions of plugins, so in this case, we were having issues with our violations for Vault. So we updated that plugin. So that one here, you can take the File Vault Maven package plugin and look on the Maven Maven site and see what versions are out there, and just make sure that you're keeping everything up to date. So here we go. We have the Maven repository, and you can see that it's currently all the way up to 1.3. I pulled 1.16 from another project that I knew was working, but obviously, the earlier the better. Okay, so moving back into our errors here, the 12 that we have. So a couple of them have to do with, let's see, so found an empty node used for ordering only without an accompanying folder. So usually that happens when there's a mismatch between the name of the folder and what we're specifying in our content.xml file. So if you look in this folder, weekend US EN magazine, we have it here. So let's go. Yeah, okay. Weekend US EN magazine. So here's our content.xml file. I just fixed this actually. So it used to be, let's revert that. So it used to be ski touring with 2 I's, and you can see that the actual name of the folder that this entry was referring to had a dash in it. So if we fix that like it just was, that should sort that out. And so there's a few more like that. I'm not really sure why the name of the folder and the entry in the XML file didn't match up, but it is a problem. So here we have the same entry under the Canadian Canadian site, language masters, and in the experience fragments. So let's go inside of here and magazine, and we'll sort this one out. So we'll fix this double I into a dash. Same thing with the language masters version, EN magazine, and fix this one. And the last one had to do with an experience fragment, so that's under weekend US. So let's see if that's also the same thing, weekend US. Yeah, so it's looking for an EN node here, and we don't have one that lives on it here. So I can just remove that together. Okay, so let's run that build one more time and see what we end up with. Okay, down to 8 violations. So looking through these, what it's saying is that so node NT folder is not allowed as a child of node with types rep authorizable folder. So I guess we're trying to put in a node of type NT folder inside of a node of type rep authorizable folder. So let's see what's going on here. All right, so let's close all that and see where we are. So that's under home groups weekend, and here's this node, MOL, etc. So if we look at its .content.xml file and its parent, right, the weekend folder in here. So the weekend folder is set as a rep authorizable folder, which makes sense. That's what it's reporting. And its child is being set as a node of type rep group. So rep group can go in an authorizable folder, but what it's reporting is that this node, it's seeing it as an NT folder, which is not the case. It's a rep group. So probably it's having a hard time connecting this .content.xml file with this small folder with the parent. So I did a bit of research behind the scenes, and it turns out that what we should have done is actually taken that absolute latest version of the file vault. So if you recall, when we looked at the available versions, it went all the way up to 1.3. And I took 1.16 just because I knew I was working in another project. That other project did not have users and groups in it. So let's go ahead and use the absolute latest version, and hopefully it can properly connect the node type from the .content.xml file to the parent. So let's run that here and see what happens. Okay, so right away I can see that it did successfully work, because what it's telling me now that it's doing is that it's installing this package into my local host. So that means that the package did successfully compile. So I'm going to stop the recording and pick it up once the installation is complete. Okay, so the UI.content package did successfully build as expected, and now we're down to the UI.config, and we have 5 violations here. So what they're saying here is that package of type application is not supposed to contain OSGI bundles or configurations. So what's probably happening is that we're using the wrong package type on the UI.config project. So if we go into that POM, so let's open up UI.config, open the POM file, and we can see that indeed we are using a package of type application. This one actually, it needs to be a package of type container. It also does need a reference to the UI.apps.structure so that we know how to arrange it along with the UI.apps, UI.core, UI.apps core, UI.content, etc. So I'm going to replace this package type entry with package type container and a reference to the repository structure package. And if we do that, we also need to include that as a dependency. So I'm going to put that at the bottom here. Okay, so now that we've got that, let's look at what other issues we have. Found no access control list, but there is supposed to be one contained as a property. AC handling is set to merge. So let's just get rid of that. Don't need that access control handling in that case. And let's give it another go. Again, I'm gonna just do a partial build. So I'm gonna change UI.content to UI.config and speed things up a little bit. All right, so that was it. Everything compiled properly right now. So I'm just gonna run a git status on my terminal and see all the files that have been modified, and from here we can start to commit them to the Git repository. So the other thing that we should probably do is run the build from the beginning, just to make sure that everything is indeed running. So I'm going to do a maven clean install -p, and then use our profile, so install package cloud, to install it to my AM4504 instance. Okay, so running that build one more time was a good call. We do have an error. I'm not sure why it wasn't picked up the first time we ran through. It's possible that one of the version updates that we made throughout the updates created this validation error. So we just have to fix this AC handling. We can just remove it from the UI.apps project. So I'm going to open that POM up from here and look for access control handling, remove that, and we'll run this whole build one more time. All right, so that worked this time. That's great. The last thing I want to do before pushing all this to the repository and running the pipeline through the Cloud Manager is I just want to look and make sure that the site is running properly on my AEM instance. So my AEM as a cloud service local instance is running on 4504. And this is from the previous session, but I'm just going to go over it one more time. So we, in order to get it to build to 4504, which is why I was running the builds with auto install package cloud as a profile, is which you can see down here, is that so we created this am.cloud.port variable which is pointing to a 4504, and created another profile here for called auto install package cloud, where we're using that port over here. So because I'm running a 6.5 instance on 4502, my cloud instance is running on 4504. So anyway, that build completed successfully. I'm going to go in, and here's my weekend sites project. It's now in my local AEM instance, and I'm just going to make sure that there's at least one page that's running properly. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is running for the first time after a build, so sometimes it takes the bundle a little bit of time to warm up. But as you can see, it's running nicely, so we can go ahead and push this to the repository. So I'm going to run a git commit with everything. Obviously, good idea to not use dot when you're doing git commits and include the files separately, but I'm just going to save some time here. So fixed all the validation errors. We'll push Adobe master, and okay, it's going to ask me for authentication. So we can always pull that from the repositories tab here. So I just need to generate a new password. So it just times out after a little while. So I'll put in my username here, and I'll copy that newly generated password and plug it in here. Okay, and that's that. So it should be in. So let's run that pipeline. Or create a new one, which is just for code quality. So that's an option that we have. We don't necessarily have to run the deploy to dev pipeline, which is going to run the code quality check and install it. Because in this case, we're just working with best practices, we can just actually create a brand new pipeline, which is just meant for code scans. So that's this option over here when you create a brand new non-production pipeline. And I'm going to give it a name and say code quality check. And once again, we want to make sure we're using the right repository, the right branch, and we're going to do a full stack code quality check. So I'm going to save this and run it. And this is just going to do our build a little bit quicker, because in this particular case, we don't necessarily care about building to our environment. We just want to make sure that all the changes we made to the code do indeed build, and we have a good code quality rating. So I'm going to monitor this pipeline as it goes through and come back to it when it's done. All right, so our code quality pipeline has completed successfully. So that means that all the tests did pass. And one thing that's really useful when looking at this screen, and it's available in the regular pipelines also, not only the code quality check ones, but you've got this review summary here. So we can see that we do have green across the board. So that means that it will build successfully if we were to run an actual pipeline that requires a build to production. And you can kind of monitor the quality of your scores here. Obviously, reliability is a little bit low at C, but that is good enough to pass. So that's something that we can look at. And so we see that in both the critical and the important sections of our report. So if we want to actually dig even deeper than we already did and try to fix those, we can download the details of the code scan, and this is going to generate a CSV file for us. So if I save this on my desktop and just pop it open, you're going to see a quick list of items that our code build pulled out for us. So in this case, we've got a couple items here. So for example, the use of a static template. So that's something that we should fix. And some deprecated classes in the Java piece. So it is useful to go through here and get a sense of what needs to be fixed. There's only one major piece, right? So this has to do with the fact that it seems like there's an OSGI config or install path that is in the wrong place. So that's probably something we do want to fix. So going through this gives us an idea of what's wrong with our project. It also does give you a bit of a level of effort in terms of how long it would take to fix. And generally speaking, after you've fixed them all, you're likely to move up in the reliable rating and probably hit that A mark. All right, thanks a lot.